Mate.
Doing it pretty shit though.
Mate, how was it? It looked amazing, those photos.
Oh, it was. It was like a great course and everything. But I don't think I was even there. You didn't see any photos of me.
No, probably too
tough. I didn't take any. I think the cameras had all gone home by the time they got
it looked amazing, It's really epic. I did the run on Tararus that similar time. I was going, there was a group of us, and we're thinking, wow, it'd be so cool to be doing the God Zone. And after 7 hours, I was thinking, fuck, I'm glad I'm not doing the God Zone.
You're running.
Yeah, but it's so long. There's room.
Down the front.
Front row seats left. You might not be able to sit with your partner.
You got to pay double for those.
Did you have to pay it all?
$5.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, I didn't bring cash.
That's all right. Just pay later.
I can get change out.
Or whatever. That'd be great. Hey mate. $5. There's still some seats, I think. It's got a good turnout tonight. This is a bit. That's 5A. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, grab a seat. Got you guys.
The invoice for this whole family going. So what are you sort of
All right.
You need to start.
We'll start in about 5 minutes, I reckon.
Getting angsty.
Poolers. Yeah, we'll start soon.
What's a long run?
200.
Should we start soon? Get it going? Right then.
Probably only for 20 minutes or so, so you have the skip. Because it's coming off. But what I didn't realise is the guy around so I just stop.
Right. Should we start? Do you guys want to? You're going to chill out? Right. Should we start? Hello. All right, everybody. Because we got quite a few speakers to get through tonight, might as well get going. And I know you guys like running in the Tararus, but I know we got quite a bit of talking about running in the Tararus tonight. So, but yeah, so it's a bit of a structured thing. We're going to have a few talks. I'll do the intro, then we'll have a break, so you can hobnob with each other and plan your SK, and then we'll have some more talks. But generally, we've been doing these talks for a fair while now, for a few years, and it's just really cool to get a whole lot of adventurous people like yourselves together. And I think places like this, when we all come together, it's where real ideas are born. And it's a real good sense of momentum now in the Wellington running community, I reckon. It's just got a really good group of people, and basically the SK is a fantastic route with tradition that the trampers have been doing for many years. It's just a really, really amazing journey in terms of I've done it on 2 days, and it just blows my mind that anyone could possibly do it in 24 hours. So I'm a bit of a fraud in terms of I like pushing it. I haven't done it, but I've been up there helping them on multiple occasions, and I just get a buzz out of being up there with them, because what you're seeing is something epic. It's something central to the human spirit, which is like going when you don't think you can keep going, and just keep going. And it's an amazing journey, and I'm excited about it. And we've got a really great, we've got like the godfather of the 24-hour SK here, Colin Rolfe, who said he'd come up during the week. So what he did in 1995 was like really reset the standards of what people can achieve in the right situation and you know, with the guts and determination, you can get through. And it's like, I've seen people, when I was up there with in terrible weather, and I've seen it in their eyes, they're at their end of their tether, but they just push through, and it's really inspiring. And what I'm really hoping to take from this is that, you know, we can do amazing things with determination. And in England they've got the Bob Graham round, and in New Zealand we don't have anything like that. This is very, very similar to the Bob Graham round in its essence, but it's a little bit more hardcore as you can't get down to a road. Chris says it's possibly Bob Graham might be a little bit harder in terms of duration and the altitude, but we've got something really remote here. It's a mountain adventure, and the Tauraruas are magic, and they're on our doorstep. You can just get in the car and you could be in wilderness within about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I've really got into it in the last few years, and it's I think it's a magic place. So I'm trying with all our good group of people we've got together, the like-minded spirits, we're trying to push it, you know, push the mantra of let's do missions. And we've got a website now, the Taurarua Speedrunning's website, that's got 5,000 visitors in 1 year, 35 countries. It's going great guns. I mean, it's getting lots of hits, so people are interested in that concept. So I'm going to quickly pass on soon to the other people, but essentially this is going to be, hopefully this will be the start where we're going to, Chris will talk about it, we're going to hopefully establish the start of something that may roll on in perpetuity in terms of other people giving it a go, aka the Bob Graham round in England, with the same concepts, with a certificate, and Chris will explain that later. But I wanted to say at the start, Tony Glentworth from Spot NZ has been really great. He's been supplying spot trackers for us, and we followed our runners down the range. So Dave Kettles is a great fan of that. He loves sitting at home with his beer watching people go down the main range. And when they got into Marchant and you couldn't really see them, he got all upset. He's like, this is rubbish. But generally along the tops they work really well. So you can watch people suffer from your own bedroom or lounge having a beer on the couch. It's great. And they're going up Bridge Peak and you're just sitting there. But apart from that, it's fantastic for safety. I want to continue with this relationship with Spot NZ because he's been really great and really helpful, and if it does carry on, if we can supply people with spot trackers, it's got an emergency beacon, so we'll always know where they are if they need help, and we can track them. So it's actually quite a serious thing. So I wanted to mention Spot at the start of this. So without further ado, what we wanted to do is, because we're not going, right, we're a whole lot of runners, we're taking over, this is our SK, because we know it's a traditional route, we know trampers treasure this route, and we are approaching it like we want to do it together. We're all doing it in our own way, unsupported, supported, different speeds, but we're all on the same journey together. We want to support each other, and at whatever level you do it at, we want to be there to help, just to get New Zealanders into the wilderness. There's not that many people in there. So it's just great in there. So we do have Colin here. He was, most of you probably know about Colin Rolfe or heard the name. He's a bit of he reset the boundaries of what could be achieved. People were tramping this route in a weekend, and he went, oh, I'm going to run it in his tramping boots before it was a very good track, and he smashed it out in 1995 in 22 hours. And it was just like, for someone to just go, I'm going to do it when no one else has done it, it's really set the standard. Just an amazing achievement. So I'd like to welcome up Colin now, say a few words, and then I'll pass on to Chris. But Colin, I've got to get you to wear this, mate, for the videos. Yes. So if you can
hook you up
and put that in your pocket. So if you put that in your pocket.
Well, I'm a techno idiot. I'll probably stuff that up.
Yeah. So just say a few words and.
How's that going?
Yeah. Is that all right, Andy?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Chris, for the introduction. I've had a few titles in my time, but Godfather's a new one, so that's going to take a bit of living up to. Yeah, and good to see a few old faces and lots of new faces. The off-road running community is alive and kicking. Back in the day, I'd like to reiterate, and it always has been a tramping thing. The trampers, the original target was a weekend trip. This is like back in the 50s and 60s and that, and there was, I think you'll probably have to read up on Tony Gaisley's book to find out the details, but it was, I think it was Peter Daniel that was the first one to do it as a weekend, was he? But anyway, then it became a bit of a challenge, and there was a guy, Hutt Valley tramper called Gary Goldsworthy, who I sort of got my inspiration from, because he had a crack at, he was the first person to have a legitimate crack at the 24 hours, and he did about 25 and a half, which was a pretty good effort for a tramper that he refused to run, apparently, and he pretty much tramped it in 25 and a half hours. And I thought, you silly bugger, you just run it a little bit here and there and you can do it. So that's where I sort of thought I'd have a crack. So I did a few recce's on different parts of the track. Oh, and by the way, back then the track was a lot rougher, and there were no shortcuts, and the weather was always foul. Yeah, so I learned from his pace notes. Oh, and there also the guy that had all the press back in the day was a guy called Graham Dingle, and apparently people that didn't really know the lay of the land said, oh, but Dingle's done it in 18 hours. But Dingle did the Dingle route, and not taking anything away from Dingle, but he actually had 2 overnights. He overnighted at Shorman Hut, and then he went via Main Range and Holsworth Range to Smiths Creek Shelter in 18 hours, and then got out the next day. So he did 2 overnighters, but that was a fantastic effort, and he was a pioneer, not just in mountain running. So, but anyway, so 21 or so years ago, I thought I'd have a crack, and I had the perfect day. My planning was start about 3 in the morning, pick the weekend with the best weather closest to the longest day. Or no, it was the first full moon after the longest day. So there you go, which turned out to be sometime in January, and yeah, we had perfect weather, and it was just a great day. And I had a great bunch of friends that come along, and a couple of guys started with me, but they couldn't keep up, so they had to go back. And then a few of them tramped in overnight to a couple of points on the way to sort of give me a rev up on the way through. So yeah, so it was a fantastic day, and I enjoyed every minute of it. The other thing I'd like to acknowledge is around that time, it was the early days of organised mountain running events, like the Tararua race and the Mount Holsworth race, and the organisers of those events were a key component of getting a good mountain running community together. You know, get people keen, let's do a bit of training for this, let's get out in the hills, and that sort of blended the runners with the trampers, because you're better off going tramping for your training for a lot of that sort of stuff. So yeah, and that's what got the community together. And I had a good bunch of mates that we'd get out and when it was boys only, it was take no prisoners. You know, you'd lose half of them on the way round and sort of meet back at the pub and that sort of thing. It was great. So it's good to see, but for about probably 20 years, nearly 20 years, hardly ever, a few people had a crack at it and failed miserably, and then I thought, well, I actually got to the point where I thought, well, I hope someone does it soon, because you know, that's what records are for, they're made to be broken, and otherwise, if everyone thinks, don't worry about it, and then I'd be thinking, oh, well, it doesn't really matter, you know, but it's really good to see now they're coming in thick and fast. I'm going to have to get back up there and do some more pace notes and have another crack when I'm about 60. so yeah, but anyway, it's a lot of fun, and I think I've used up my allotted time. Yeah, we can carry on. You want, yeah, no, that's all good. All right. Yeah, enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yes, I'll grab your
Yep, we can do that.
Well done. Thanks, Colin.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So, as he says, like, there's a real momentum going now with the people doing it. Like last year, there was 5, hence we're having a talk tonight. But the first one to do it, how many more years later was it? Like probably 10, 15 years later. It was a guy called Chris Swallow and his mate Lawrence Pidcock, who's leaning against the wall here, subtly fading into the background there. They decided to give it a crack reading the book. So I'm now going to introduce Chris Swallow from England, and he'll have a bit of a discussion, Yorkshire, Crawley, and he'll have a bit of a discussion about the what we're hoping to achieve tonight and the whole basic concept of the SK as we see it in 24-hour challenge. So welcome, Chris Swallow. Shut that on, geezer.
Do you wanna? Can you get my?
I'll put your thing. Yeah.
So before I moved to New Zealand, I used to say I was a Yorkshireman, not an Englishman. But
I thought you frowned at that.
yeah, you can tell by my accent I've been in New Zealand a while. So when I heard Colin was coming, I thought that's great because yeah, I think we did it in 2012 and Colin did it in 95, so about 17 years had elapsed, and we didn't know anything about the route, but we just knew that this fella called Colin Rolfe had done it. I never met the guy, but you know, I knew he was 12 foot tall and had tree trunk sized legs and all the rest of it. So I wanted to debunk some myths about Colin. Now he's here. So first, these are all things I've legitimately heard about you, Colin. Number one, that's not up there, don't click just yet. Number one was that before your attempt you went up with a set of shears and chopped back the leatherwood in certain areas of the route. True or false? False? Alright. Number one then. Give us a click, Martinez. You sold your bed to buy some running shoes. Is that true or false?
I don't know the beat.
Right. Is it because you own shoes instead? Alright, next. I heard a rumour that your house burnt down and you had a Powell Hut sub 1 hour club cap adorned with brass plaques for making it to the hut in an hour.
Yes, that's why I've got a sword in.
That's the only thing you saved. No, anyway. Next one. This is one of my favourites. You regularly ran from your house in Kapiti across the Tarruas to your mum's house in the Wairarapa, mowed the lawns, ran back across the Tarruas and got to the pub for closing time. Not true?
Slightly embellished. Run through the Kaitoki and tried to have lunch and bike home.
Alright. And the final one, you can shoot firebolts at your ass. No? Alright, I might click from here. No worries.
Yeah, so just that one then. Right.
Okay, so yeah, I've done 2 SKs. First one was 2012, and then I did one just recently, and I got asked that question a bit when I said I'm going to do it again, and it made me think. People said you must be mental, so I thought, well, what is it about this mentality of trying to knock off that route in 24 hours? That's Paul Helm, by the way, stood at the back, and that's you, Ben, as well. Yeah, Southern Crossing that. So yeah, I was there in 2012, did it with Lawrence, and then I knocked it off again recently in a bit of a quicker time. Yeah, and that's what you look like at the end. So to think about doing it again, don't really know about that, but yeah, we basically got lost, and that was quite an inspiring thing. So these were so my talk's kind of about the mental approach and what motivates you and the psychology of all this madness, I guess. So they were sort of my motivations. What was my capacity? It was an opportunity to explore some new territory in training and on the route. And we didn't even know that we could go under 24 hours. That was quite an exciting thing, because we just knew that this fella that had set multiple records in the Tarruas had gone an hour under 24. And we knew we weren't quite in that league, and thought, well, could we do it? And yeah, there's Colin on his SK. That's the old Manga Hooker Hut in the background. Photo by Barry Durant. I think that made the Don Post or whatever evening the front page. How about it? And yeah, so that was Colin's time, 22:59. So we were thinking, Christ, that's only an hour off 24. Be nice to do it under 24, but if someone of his standard was just an hour under, then anyway. So we were all a bit on those lines. Anyway, that was our mentality. We had a 24-hour stick, as in, could we do it? And then we thought to ourselves, well, if we were sort of touching on 23, that became a carrot then, could we? And we found that quite a powerful motivator on the day, because we got crap weather. And yeah, that's my schedule there on laminated piece of plastic with a pencil. That's how I record things. So that was a 24-hour schedule. I basically just added a minute onto Colin's times, and this one was Colin's record, and then a place for our own times. And when we were going into this, there was no information like there is now. I mean, now I think 11 people have done it. We didn't really know schedule-wise what equated to good times and things, and we had Gary Goldsworthy's very, very impressive 25.5 hours. Greg Thurlow, is Greg here? No, he knocked it off in moving time about the same, but he had a kip at Herapai. That kind of threw the schedule off a bit, and then we had Collins as well. So that's how we approached it mentally. And if there's people here being inspired, I'd say schedules are important, because if you look at it as a total route, it becomes quite overwhelming. Whereas if your goal is just to get somewhere in the next hour and a half, and then if you get there and you're up on your schedule, great. If you're not, then work a bit harder. Yeah, that was our approach. All things that are good for mentality. I like to see other people on the hills. It keeps me sort of buzzing a bit. We got lost. Yeah, added a bit of time on, and after however many hours in the hills, the Marchant was actually quite a lovely place. So I hear people sort of bad mouthing the Marchant, and I said to them, do an SK, you'll find it very, very lovely after 17 hours on the ridges in the rain. So this whole sort of I got lost, and or we got lost rather, and it wrangled with me, because I didn't feel as though I'd achieved my potential. I knew that I could go a little bit quicker, so I had unfinished business, and I got a big map of the Tarrows on my bedside, and what I did was I cut out our split times and put them up on places on the map, and I put in Sutton's split for the bit that we cocked up on, and it came out at 19:48, and I thought, oh, do you know what, maybe one day I'll have another go at that. Then I had one of them, and long runs kind of went out the window, but I decided on a whim really to write up a 1948 schedule, and I said to myself, again, this mental approach, if I'm not hitting my splits at Junction Knob, I'm off to Otaki Forks and go do some shopping in Levin. And because I'd not done any long runs, like I think I did one run over 7 hours and felt rubbish, so I got support and stayed pretty light, and that was my record card this time. So this was my 19-hour 48 schedule with a space for me to write my splits in. And that was me at the end, feeling pretty rough for my dad and Tom Middlemiss, and Tom had a lovely bottle of Jura whiskey and some cold beers, and I could just about manage some watermelon. Anyway, so it is a lot of a mental thing, because I think I went into that second one in arguably not brilliant physical shape. I honestly think that time's a bit soft. I think it could be smashed. I think if I put my mind to it, I could probably knock an hour off it, and someone a lot better than me. I think that route's 14-hourable, and I hope it gets done within the next decade. I honestly do think it's 14-hourable. So me not being in the best physical shape and still sort of getting down the range in that time, I think it's a lot to do with this. So I just wanted to sort of share my thoughts on what it is to be running in the hills. I honestly believe that if you've been in the mountains for 5 hours, the pain in your legs is no worse than when you've been in the hills for 22 hours. So you might as well just deal with it. I've talked about the importance of a schedule. I think it's a really powerful motivational thing to aim for your next goal, rather than just, I'm trying to get to Kaitoke, oh shit, that's miles away. What's my next goal? Right, I've got there, what's my next goal? Got there. And you're just making progress all the day. Get out in the hills, do some recce's of the route, try and do them at a pace that you want to go out on the day.
Has the next cut got canola oil? That's another one.
Canola oil, yeah, mental thing, I drink, yeah. Get familiar with your route, get yourself some good gear, because if the weather craps in, which it can do in the Tarrows, it's always useful. And crave food. We read Colin's report many a time before we had a go, and one thing that struck me was the size of your bloody breakfast, Colin. It said something like macaroni, porridge, bacon and eggs, a curry, a Chinese takeaway, 4 beers and whatever, and then you hit the hills. And it seemed like the mentality then was like, big breakfast and go. And I'm not sure it did. So I've sort of, and people that have run with me know that I've had some pretty out there things in the hills, and yeah, I've found things that work for me. But you've got to crave food. It's just about putting food into your body, and then you've got energy. And one of Martini's favourite quotes is, when you're in a bit of a world of pain, think, well, at least I'm not on the couch. It's great to be out there in nature. When times are tough, just look at your surroundings and think, this is fantastic. And there's Colin touched upon the sort of history of this route, and it's a real privilege to be sort of treading in the footsteps of people who've gone before you. And I honestly believe that the history of this route is quite sizable, and it's only going to, the stuff that's going on now is only going to add to that history, and I hope it really continues. And it's all, like I said, it's always positive to meet friends in the mountains. So I had a few people come up to meet me, and I knew where they were going to come. Unfortunately, I won't say he was late, I'll say I was early, and he had a bit of a bag of food for me. So if the warden from Anderson's Hut is here, I'll apologise for knocking your padlock off. I was on the search for calories, and yeah, all I could find was some canola oil for the next 5 hours, which was pretty it's high energy, put it that way. And then you've always got the marching to look forward to, especially on a rough day, or on a hot day, you've got a bit of shade. So I firmly believe that everyone in this room with the right approach and obviously a physicality to take them there could do this. I don't think it's out of anybody's league. I think a 24-hour SK is attainable if you put mind over matter. There's obviously a physicality to it, but you've got to be able to visualise yourself doing it. And if your mind quits, you're out of there. One thing that sort of strikes me when you see these events, which are like what's that one in Northburn? Yeah, where you do a lap, or some of the big American races where you go back to a place of solitude and shelter, where you've got your food and all the rest of it, and then you've got to leave the tent and go out again. People don't leave the tent. It's in the mind. Whereas if you're on the ridges and you've no choice but to keep going, you keep going. All right. So if you're thinking of giving this a go, do so. But just be aware that there is an option at Bridge Peak to turn right to Levin for shopping. It's left for glory, right for shopping. Left, right. Okay. And we've had, I think this is fantastic, we've had 2 vets, excuse me for using the word veteran, over 50s. One of those was a male, one of those was a female. We've had 2 females do the route in 24 hours now, as well as some sort of younger fellas. And I know that there's a couple of lads in their 20s, early 20s, who are thinking of giving it a nudge this summer. So that's really positive, and I really think that as long as you're not like 84 and using a Zimmer frame, I think age shouldn't be a barrier to this. So get the mental side sorted and your body will follow suit if you want to do a main range SK in under 24 hours. So that's me. I'll be back in a bit, but any more info, Google that, and thanks for coming and donating. We don't really have time for questions, do we? So maybe let's just move on. Anybody got a question?
How many Ks is it?
Oh, well, the official thing's 77, but Colin said it used to be 110. So it used to be 110, but the mountains have shrunk. We've got a bit shorter now. About 80 I think. But it's not the distance, it's the climbing. They reckon it's about 7,000 metres of climbing. Right, well, I'll do them. So what we're going to do now is people, in addition to myself, who've done it in 24 hours, are going to have a bit of a talk about their experience. Yeah. All right.
All right, mate. And I'm not going to reach into your pants. Right. All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, Chris has been a great asset to the Wellington running scene. He came over with a lot of enthusiasm, and I was running a running group that we were doing like 3-hour runs, and he sort of made 3 hours seem small, and 5 hours became the norm, and it just expanded to 7 to 10, 15. That's involved with, when you get involved with Paul Helm, that happens. But it's been great because I think, well, for me personally, it sort of resets the what you're capable. I didn't think you could run for that long in the hills until he said, let's do this. And then I was really tired, but I thought, oh, I have to keep going. And then I went, oh, I can do it. And that's why I like running the Arangi Undulator, because you see it on people's faces. we're actually capable of these things. It's like there's a lot of negativity out there in the real world saying I'm too old. And I've got friends that say, oh, I can't do that. I'm too old for that. I've done that. I can't do that. But actually, with a bit of training and the right food, we're all capable. Because I think it's harkening back to our days when we were like, if you read all the books about our early evolutionary days, we used to roam the hills and hunt, and with slow burning fat you can keep moving, you can keep going, and then you find you can get going. It's the Western sedentary lifestyle that's taken over what we're capable of, and I think there's a movement around the world now that obviously people are realising, hang on, I'm not tired after 2 hours, I can keep moving. But yeah, so I know trampers and military and mountaineers all know that, but you know, these are adventures you can get out in the weekend and just do. So the next person I've got on the list is Tim. Who wants to go next? Or do you want to go next, Tim? Okay. So welcome Tim Sutton. He's a great mountain man and really very, very quick to boot. And you
got a rubber arm that you managed to twist quite well.
Yeah, and I've got a little bit of a fuss up.
Hi guys, how you going? So yeah, Chris got me at a weak moment. I just thought I'd bring my gear in so you can actually see what I carried through the hills. Chris got me at a weak moment after the Aorangi undulator, which he set up a couple of years ago. I ran it back in 2014 for the first time. I think that was the first official race. And he sent me an email shortly after that weekend saying, here's your next challenge, mate. And being young and impressionable, well not so young but impressionable, I sort of had a wee look at the SK and then seen that Chris Swallow, who I'd run with, and Lawrence had done it a couple of years beforehand, and thought, oh, that can't be too hard. And the brilliant thing about a map of the Tararuas is everything's so flat, and I think pulling out the map, having not been in the Tararuas for quite a while, I'd sort of you quickly forget how steep those hills are. But anyway, I decided, okay, well, I'm up for another challenge, and so I started doing a bit of research and decided I'd refresh my memories of the Tararuas and headed in to do a climb up from Otaki Forks to Mount Hector, just to get my head back in the hills, and also have a look at Bridge Peak, which somebody had mentioned was a fun part of the SK, usually when your legs are starting to talk back to you. And so I went up there, remembered how steep the hills are, and thought, okay, I've got a bit of training to do. Doing the undulator is light and fast approach, and through the reading that I'd done on the SK, I think Gary Goldsworthy's approach of the solo unsupported approach really resonated with me. Not to take away at all from the guys doing it fast and light. I just felt like I needed an adventure that I could do that where the motivation was entirely on my own back, to get myself all the way through. And so I think the biggest question in my head was the fact that I'd only ever run 5 hours. 5 hours was the longest time I'd ever spent in the hills. That was doing the Southern Crossing. And so it goes back to that question is, can I even do something longer than that, let alone a day? This is talking more about 24 hours. And so I think the next thing that I set out to do was try and do some longer runs and work out whether my body and my mind were actually cracked up to do this. And so I set myself a target. We had Christmas up in Taranaki with my family. My brother's up that way, and so Steve Neary and Malcolm Law had recently done a run where they went up to the summit of Taranaki, back down, and then all the way around the mountain, and that had taken them something like 14 hours. And I thought, okay, so I'm up there got Boxing Day, and be a good time to go for a run. And so me and Dad and my brother headed in to do that, and they went up to the top and back. Well, I shot off to the top and did my run around the mountain, and I surprised myself. It's it was either Chris or Chris said once you've been running for 5 hours, the pain's no different from when I finished 12 hours later. Yeah. In fact, I think once you get past the 5 hour mark, all those little niggles have sort of turned into one big niggle, and so it sort of keeps your mind from wandering to the little niggles. Yeah, so having done that, I think that cemented in my mind that I could run bigger, and I think that's a good thing to look at if you've only been doing, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hour runs, you're capable of doing much bigger than that. And I think every time you do a bigger run, you realise that the boundaries are just there to be pushed further and further out. And so, having done that, everyone had talked about the northern section of the SK, going in from Putara out to Puki Matawai, which is all. There's a foot trail, in places it's better than others, but yeah, that's me. I took far too many photos. That's another thing. If you're not wanting to push hard for the time, then leave your camera at home. Yeah. It slowed me down on a recent trip in the hills. But yeah, being up there, I actually got a magic day. It was probably the hottest day of that summer, which was a blessing and a curse at the same time. There wasn't a breath of wind until I think the Tararua ladders, and then that was just a breath of wind and it went away again, so it was a scorching hot day. I've got, well, I think I lost a bottle over there, but I basically carried 4 bottles, and there's a couple of sections right at the start from Hirapai Hut through to Drak Biv, where you need to carry quite a lot of water.
Water tank at Drak Biv.
Yeah, and I was. It had been really hot for a couple of weeks before that, and I was kind of worried that because it's part of the Tiara Trail that
Chris,
it could have been drained.
It was MTA, Chris.
Yeah, there's a dock 20 minutes outside.
Yeah. It wouldn't be very fun to come to this hut and find it empty, because you've got 5 hours leading up to that from Hirapai Hut along the tops until you get there. But they had water in it when I got there. Sorry, this is my PowerPoint presentation on paper. So basically, I'm just going to go through a few of the things that I focused on when I was out there. I think Chris and Colin have both said it. A lot of it's just a power tramp. Like, people picture you going up there and running it all, and it's just, unless you're a mutant, I just don't think it's possible. There'd be somebody, if you're travelling really light and had everyone carrying your stuff for you, then you might be able to run a fair bit of it. But a lot of that northern section, the conditions underfoot, you can't even see where you're putting your feet, and so it's not really a mountain run. There are some sections that you can pace through just to tick off a bit of time, but it's really just a fast trek. So if you're not a fast runner, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Basically, when I had my pace notes like Chris was talking about, and I found that between the huts it was really good to have something to push towards, and also as part of that I had the amount of water that I was going to pick up in each hut, so that I could go in knowing exactly what I was going to do at the hut. I up until a trip after the SK, I'd never been into a Tararua hut, so you don't have to have a tramping background to get amongst it either. And so I basically made it a rule for myself that I wasn't going to go into any of the huts. I was going to treat each of the huts like a transition. I come from a multi-sport background where you change from bike to running to kayaking, and you try to keep the transitions as quick as possible, because every time that you're sitting down, you're not going forward and the time's ticking away. And if you're trying to get in under 24 hours, then it's really good to think about those times at the stops. So I'd go in knowing exactly how many bottles I wanted to fill up, and have a big drink, throw some water in the bottles and get going again, so that the temptation to stay sitting wasn't there, to go into a nice comfy hut. Again, Chris was talking about the food. I think for me, I've always run on gels, and so I actually set my backpack up so that I didn't have to go into it at all while I was on the go. So maybe I've put on a bit of weight since I last wore this. And so I basically had a gel bottle here, water bottles there, and had my watch set to a 20-minute timer, so it would beep at me every 20 minutes. I'd knock some gel back. I was drinking water constantly, and that way it just took my mind totally off the feeding, and just gave me time to concentrate on going ahead. And it's just about paring things back. If you're wanting to do it quick, it's you don't want to be carrying any extras. Having said that, you want to be carrying enough to be safe if you're out there and do yourself an injury and end up having to stay out on the tops overnight. I basically carried enough that if I needed to, I could have pulled up at the side of the track and set the PLB off and waited there for any amount of time. One of the tricks that I think that a few people have probably discovered in their SKs is take a spare torch. I think Colin may have run into that problem, and also Chris. And it also helps when you're changing the batteries of your good torch as well. I was in a fairly interesting state. I'd say probably altered state by the time I got about halfway along Marchant Ridge and my battery ran out. And if I was fumbling in the dark for my batteries without a spare torch, I think I might have ended up asleep at the side of the track for until the sun came up and somebody came in looking for me. Yeah, I just carried a tiny little emergency torch. Yeah, my mobile phone isn't that flash.
That's what Chris used down the
Yeah, and so the other thing that I did was because I'd been in as far as Dundas on the recce that I did with Chris Swallow, and everything from Dundas on to the top of Ridge Peak, I hadn't been along before, and I think for me part of it was the adventure and discovering some new country, and so I'd studied the maps pretty well, so and made some notes on where things could go wrong, read other people's reports on where they ran into troubles, yeah, basically I just had the different sections cut into segments so that, again, I didn't have to stop if I needed to check something. I had it hanging at my front, and you could keep on moving. And I think all of that adds, like when you're pushing to get under 24 hours, as Paul Helm will tell you, it's few minutes under 24 hours. If he had stopped a couple more times or anything like that, then it's just a number. But it's when you've spent 24 hours out there trying to get under 24 hours, then a number's a big thing. Yeah, so I think the best point that Chris Swallow made was you want to prepare for it going in not knowing necessarily whether you can do it, but going in confident that you've done everything you can to prepare to do it. Things can come up and you may have to change plans, but having that confidence going into it and really knowing that you've prepared does a huge amount mentally. I think you need to be in the right headspace, and be comfortable knowing that your mind might go a little bit funny on Merchant Ridge. It's not a bad place to be as long as you're happy to go slow for a while. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Good one, Tim.
You're welcome to grab the bag if you want to see how heavy it was heading up from Hirapai.
Tim actually makes his own gear, his sort of ultimate direction gear. It's really slick. So he actually thinks their stuff's a bit heavy, and so I think that it gives you an example of this type of stuff he makes. And he's just been fashioning one for the guy who won the Aorangi Undulator, Anthony Hill. He's a huge guy. I said to him, if he points at something, it's going to rip it to pieces. But yeah, so he makes his own stuff. He's really particular about what he eats, and every second counts. And we found that when he did the A100, he's really fast. But he's also got the right idea. It's the adventure, but really talented mountain runner. I hope he stays at it and doesn't go back. Well, he says he might go back to coast, but who knows what is next. I mean, he's thinking about the 1500s. So these guys that have done it, they're actually starting to talk about what's the next challenge. We've done the SK. What can you do? Someone said KS. That's crazy talk. You can't swap it around, boy. And there's the 1500. It's all the 1500 meters in 48 hours. So that's it. There's other challenges out there. I think Rolf was talking about having a crack at it one day. Did you do it, Colin? Yeah. So you did it in 36 hours? Yeah, so you've done it. And so, wow, that's awesome. So that's an amazing epic journey. Another thing he's done. But so fantastic effort from these people. So now we've got other people. Well, let's have one more talk, and then we can have a break and grab a beer or whatever, and then we can do the remaining ones after and Chris's presentation. Do you want to go next, Lou? And yeah. So I'd like to introduce Al Shelton and Lou Beckingsale, great Tuesday nighters, and they did it as a team, and they're good. They've got a good story to tell, I'm sure, because they've been great to have around Wellington. We're losing Lou to the South Island. We're trying to stop it, but if anyone got an idea of how we can stop it going, that's good. Come up with it. So who wants the...
I'm going to start, I think.
So
yeah.
Plug that in.
What do I do? Put it there.
Oh, yeah, just clip it in. I think you probably put it out there, and then you put that in your pocket. Put that.
Just hold on to it.
It's active, yeah. So put that in your pocket. No.
Yeah, so I'm Lou and this is Al, and we ran ours together at the end of end of last year. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my year leading up to it, because I think lots of people are going to talk about the day, and then I'm going to hand over to Al, who's going to tell you a little bit about our adventure. So I think the first photo, for many of you who are in the room already know that I only started mountain running at the start of last year. However, I did have three passions that meant that I was like a duck in water. I love to run fast and long distance. It's me in the London Marathon a few years ago. I've always loved to tramp, ski, backcountry ski. So I've always loved the mountains, and I love beer. Next slide. So that meant that when I met these this motley crew of Tuesday running boys and girls, I fitted in quite nicely, and I found myself here every Tuesday night having a run, having a beer, planning our missions for the coming weekends. Few months in, I found myself signed up to, next slide, run around Mount Taranaki, and at this point I hadn't run any further than marathon distance on the road or been out in the hills for longer than 6 hours running. So I was going into unknown territory, as was a few of the other guys that I was running with. And I learned a lot about running on this day. Marta's not here tonight, but she set the pace, and she set a nice slow, well, it's not slow, but a nice strong, steady pace, and she pretty much kept us moving all day. She ran everything that was runnable, and we finished, felt good. I think it was about a 12-hour trip, and I guess at the start I was intrigued to know what would happen to my body and my mind, but turns out not a lot, just good to get home for a beer at the end of the day. Hugh will remember that well. So following that, like just every weekend that I was in Wellington, many trips out into the Tararuas, lots of different friends. This is a trip in the Orongorongas. Every trip I learned something new about my food, I learned something new about my hydration, I learned something new about the gear that I did or didn't need to carry. And I learned a lot about the weather. So this was a southern crossing, full moon southern crossing attempt. We didn't see much of the moon, there was snow, and yeah, I learned a lot about gear and weather on that trip. Next slide. I think these two guys here were pretty pivotal in me actually attempting an SK. I was privileged enough to be invited on some of their trips. Northern Crossing we did before the winter, and a Bannister trip for Tim's birthday. And I think for the entirety of the trip they talked about the SK. So this is them actually spelling out SK, looking down the main range. And at this point I was kind of starting to think, maybe it'd be interesting to know if I could do it. But they talked about it and I just listened. And yeah, a couple of pretty epic trips. Tim also had a knack of choosing awesome days out, and so got a really good sense of the route and how big it was. And of course this was the first trip across the northern section as well. So that's the next slide. I think this was the trip that made me decide that I definitely wanted to give an SK an attempt. So this was a midweek southern main range, so this is the third section of the route. We got a stellar day. I was out with Dave, and I got an email in my inbox the next day saying, do you know how we fared up against the big guns? And so he'd pretty much checked our times out against Chris and Tim, and turns out we were a bang on pace. So I think it was about a 12-hour it was a nice day out. We weren't pushing it too hard, and I kind of thought, okay, well if we can do this trip in 12 hours, and I probably could have turned left for Glory rather than right for Otaki at that point. I thought I'm pretty ready to do it. And I was in the middle of training for the Aorangi Undulator. Next slide. So lots of big training miles every week and lots of back-to-back runs, and was probably the fittest that I probably will ever be. But I had a small problem because Dave had pretty much led me around the Tararuas. I'd been out with Ian, who always had his GPS and his map and compass, and I was like, I wasn't feeling that confident maybe to get myself through that northern section if the clag came in. So a couple of weeks before the Undulator, I had a conversation with Al, and it turns out he was thinking about doing giving an SK an attempt as well. And I asked him how I'd feel about running as a pair, and he was keen. So we ran the last day of the Undulator together, and then 5 weeks later I was packing my bags to give our first attempt to go. There you go.
We'll come back. Does it do anything? Hold on. Oh, someone pushed the button for me. Yeah, so I guess for me, my initial exposure to the SK, I'd heard of it as a tramping trip. I'd never thought about it as a running trip until Chris and Lawrence did it back in 2013. And I went up and supported them that day and ran a little piece of the course with them. Sat in Drac Hut for about 2 hours while they were getting lost up on Dundas. But yeah, that sort of inspired me to give it a crack. And I saw these guys doing it in crappy weather with a 2-hour detour and sub 24. And I thought, well, if they can do that, then if I have a really good day, I can do about 24 hours. So kind of the seed was planted that day, I think. And yeah, it sort of sat there and grew for a couple of years until, like Lou said, found someone else who wanted to give it a go, and I thought, doing it as a pair sounds like quite a nice idea. Makes it a little bit less daunting than doing it solo, I think. So I guess for me, I've been out in the mountains quite a lot in the last 5-10 years, but there was still a few bits of the route I hadn't done. So a big thing for me was doing a really good recce of the whole lot. So I got up there in winter and did the northern section, which was a really awesome trip. And then you're gonna switch to the next one, Chris. And yeah, did the Southern Main Range as well about a month later. And once I'd done that, I'd done the whole route in bits now. So I was feeling a hell of a lot more confident just knowing that I'd covered each section of the course. And yeah, just feeling confident about being able to navigate my way around it without too much trouble. Next one, yep. Oh, that's Lou on our first attempt. Yeah, so we went up there and gave it a crack. Was it mid-December last year? Got an hour into it up to Hirapai Hut, and the weather was absolute shit. So in hindsight, we wisely pulled the pin, which wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was bloody awful up there. And you know, starting off in really awful weather with 4, 5, 6 hours of, you know, horizontal rain and wind would make the whole thing pretty unpleasant. So we bailed out and went back again a week later. The next weekend, wasn't it? Yeah. Stayed at the little Putara schoolhouse, which is a really cool little place. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, and that's us. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great spot. Really, really cool spot. That's just us getting ready and piles of gels and God knows what else. What do we got next? That's the one and only photo we managed to take during the actual run. We were a little bit.
I wouldn't let him take photos. I wasn't letting him stop.
We just, yeah, she wasn't. She was like a sergeant major at every hut. It was like 5 minutes, and Lou's like, "Come on, we're gonna go." That to me is real key. Like, don't stop long at the huts. That'll kill you. It really will. You got to keep your stops short and sharp. It makes the world of difference. And that's the end. I guess the only thing I'll add in between is Lou had a really great day, and she was really strong the whole day and honestly made it look easy. I had a bit of a shit day, to be honest.
Fun factor, talk about fun factor.
Yeah, the fun factor, yeah. Fun factor was really high up until about Mangahuka and the ladder. Feeling really good. Weather was pretty decent, all went great, and then I just went absolutely crashed at about that point. Real stomach troubles, nauseous, wanted to vomit for about 5 hours and it wouldn't come. And yeah, it was probably the darkest place I've ever been to on a run. It was tough. And got to Alpha Hut and I said to Lou, just go on, just leave me, you know. I'm just going to hold you back. And she convinced me to keep going. And I guess, you know, you get through those low paces, it comes back, you know. You go through the tough spots, but it improves. You keep going, and we go on to the Marchant, and I started to feel better, and then suddenly realised we were going to crack 24, and we hit Kaitoki car park at 23.5, and that's the glory of the SK finish. You sit in the crap car park in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's you don't do it for the glamour, eh? So And any final thoughts from you?
Well, I'll just add to that. I mean, Elle did say go on at the, we were at Alpha, and there's no way I was going on because I wouldn't have got there without him. He got me through the northern section, he navigated us, whipped out his compass, and I felt pretty, you know, comfortable knowing that we were on the right track. So it wasn't about me leaving at that point.
There's no other way out when you're in Alpha. Just, you know.
And I didn't really want to sleep there.
No, you just have to go out in the morning.
I was going to talk a little bit, if I got time to talk about what's the next, is there any of this? I was going to talk about food because I'm a dietitian, for those of you who don't know. This is my famous cottage cheese loaf, perfect food for mountain running. Combination of protein and carbohydrate, and it's got lots of salt in it, and it seems to really sit well in the stomach. I'm a big believer that on these big long runs, it's a totally different approach to Tim, that I prefer to eat solid food, and I'm at an intensity that's similar to tramping, I guess. So for me, it's eating every half an hour. It's not eating a big quantity of food, but it's real solid food, and most of it's savoury food. So I'm always looking forward to the next mouthful of whatever comes out. I pretty much lived on peanut butter last year. I think I'd go through a jar a week. When you're doing that many miles, you need some good, healthy calories to get in. And at the end of every run, I've always got a bag of salt and vinegar chips and a beer, although beer did not go down all well at the end of the SK. I guess my key lessons are, or my key take-home messages for anyone that's thinking about it, it's all about the preparation. Go out there and have fun and really enjoy it. Make sure you've got good navigation or you've got a good navigator with you, because I think that confidence and knowing where you are and knowing you can just move forward is really key.
Rental schedule.
And rest afterwards. I didn't do enough of that, and I'm probably still paying for it now. But yeah, it's definitely a good journey, and I encourage anybody to give it a go. It's totally doable. Do you want to say anything else?
No.
Yay, well done. Yeah, as you can see, we've got a really good group of friends here now. They all help each other out, and that's the essence of the story. Look after each other in the hills. It's dangerous out there. People do get lost, and it is important to reinforce, we all really need map and compass skills. So if you haven't got your skills up to scratch, don't rely on electronics. I think you always have to be able to understand the map and compass. But there's great GPS, and take a PLB when you go out. But so we'll have a break now for beer and whatever, and then we've got a couple more talks after the break. So yeah, go and grab a beer.
Nothing's going
So we've got Jean, Paul, and Dave. Yeah, they're mine, yeah. I didn't realise they were on my side.
TV. It's good. It's emotional. You don't have time to read it. I am, but I'm used to it. I'm looking at every gym. It's a really good thing to do. So many exciting books. Where do you stop? Where do you start?
Start with that, mate.
And then someone's like, oh, you should read this and this. Do you want to read this? I wait at the time. That's true. No, mate, I won't. Because I'll get blacklisted. You can watch that.
Nice one, take it.
Give me tomorrow from Dan Cummings. Just good. Really.
Inspiring, mate. Say that.
Inspirational. Hey, some good punters, here looking excited. Hey, we pay you. What's that?
It's good. Right up the bank. Cash out. 400 for the insurance. And then you've got the top fee, you've got the band. Obviously, you get it's quite good to get the way to pay for it. The bank out of there.
It's a little bit annoying that
today's 24th of May. This is going to be the launch of the SK sub 24-hour main major certificate, and then we're going to have an annual general. I heard about it. Cheers.
So just had to ring the boss, so thank you. It took me a little while.
Cheers, mate. It's good that you're coming on with us.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, good rock. Yeah. Just right behind the thing.
I
just need to check something technical. I thought I've got to acknowledge people that need acknowledging.
One last thing. So when I've given Colin his, because he's then going to have to present it to me, I'll just say, thanks a lot for sort of inspiring me. I'd shake his hand, give him his certificate, and then if you just step in and go, oh look, Colin, I think now we'd like you to present the certificate to everyone else who's gone in your way.
Right. Yeah, I'll do that.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's going really well. I'm really impressed with what you've done, Chris. Well,
it's good.
Good
atmosphere. But it's the same the original trainers on here, but it's good.
Did they know about it? That's the thing.
Yeah, maybe not. It's good. It's been filmed. So hopefully this is going still. Can you see Andy? When are you guys ready? Can you see Andy Carruthers? Oh, Andy. Is it right that it's flashing red? Sage green sometimes goes red.
Let me check the batteries on the other one.
Okay.
So that one's fine.
Right.
Just check the battery.
See when you're ready.
You start everyone, you get everyone back in. Whose bio is this?
Okay, shall we do the second part?
Who's that person got that big whistle?
Okay. Alright then, take your seats ladies and gentlemen, part 2 is about to commence. No.
Who's got a whistle on their who's got a whistle on their bag?
Alright, listen up, listen up.
Hey Chris. Alright. Microphone needs to speak.
The second part is about to commence with Tom Middlemas. He's interested in the SK. He's from Scotland, from Edinburgh, and he comes from a great club there called Carnethy, and they also do mountain adventures, so it's just, he's been a great addition this year, but he's got a little event he wants to talk to you about.
Thank you. I thought I'd just hijack the event, a bit of something slightly different. No, I'll move on. A lot of people say, what's next? And you know, after the big come down of the SK, you need a different sort of challenge. So as Lou alluded to, a lot of people in the room enjoy running and enjoy drinking beers. And there's a very small Venn diagram potentially of the people in the middle who like to do both at the same time. So this is just something I thought would be fun. It's not really a race, it's just like a kind of event for anybody who wants to do it. It's called Hops and Hills, a race up peaks and down pints, so you're starting to get the idea. It's the 2nd of July, noon start. So Hops and Hills, here's the logo. Every good race needs it's not a race. So there's no original ideas in life. Carnethy Hill Running Club have to take the credit. There's an iconic race in Edinburgh around the 7 Hills, and people thought it'd be fun to see if they could do it with a bit of a kick. So this is a quick talk. Here's the glorious city of Wellington. Start on Mount Vic. There's 7 hills, okay? Start on Mount Vic. You have to get yourself to Mount Albert for the Tower Monument, to the wind turbine, to Wrights Hill, Tinnacorry Hill, the Gun Summit in the Botanics, and oh, hang on, what's going on there? Hang on, and back again. Okay, easy. It's only 17.5 kilometers as the crow flies. I wasn't. I didn't know this thing on Google that you could have to do the roads. That was just direct lines. So there is the sort of slight kicker is there's that involved as well. So the concept is that you have to drink a pint in a pub in between every hill, pub of your choice. So the basic rules are it's a race for 2 people, team of 2. So that starts to add in a factor of your choice of your teammates. Are they better at running or drinking? And you have to find someone in a combination. There's no set route between the summits, so part of it is the recceing to work out on the trails and the roads. Each team member has to drink a pint. You have to take a selfie at the summit and each pub to prove it. And the first team back is the winners. So if you're interested, if you've got what it takes, which is a running partner, strong legs, good constitution, FPOS card, and inner grit. We learned a lot about grit today. And then that's all you need. There's a debrief and prize giving in the Southern Cross after the race. There's probably a bag drop. If you're interested, please contact me, and good luck.
Big Sunday on Facebook,
maybe. It's very low key. There's definitely 4 competitors right now, so you've got a good chance of a podium finish. Sorry? Yeah, noon. Starts at noon. Yeah. So.
What's your safety plan?
2nd of July.
Is it 1 pint of beer per team or 1 each?
1 each. That's just for the elite. That's the elite category. There's other categories. If you want to just run around and take part, that'd be fantastic. So anybody who wants to do any part of it, come along or just email me. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so we might put it on the Big Sunday Run Facebook, or come along for a run on one Tuesday and we'll talk you through it. We run from here every 6:30 every Tuesday. Now, so who wants to go next? So we got Dave, or yeah, there he surprised me. Okay, Dave. I'll just do a little bit of quick brief info on Dave. I did the Rangi Undulator, I organised it, and then he just popped up one day, and this guy came up to me and said, "Oh, I haven't entered yet, or I just entered last night to get me entry." I went, I don't know if you should be allowed to. What have you done? He sort of said, I do this, that, just really humbly going, I do a bit of outdoor stuff. I went, maybe, right, okay, you look sort of good enough. And then I think he got 3rd or something, just second, all right. He's pretty fast anyway. But yeah, he's been great to have around as well, and he's very into the big mountains. He likes running on top of hills and stuff. That's the main thing. So here's Dave Allen.
Thank you.
Dave Allen, SK Tour.
That's the one.
That's what you want to talk about tonight?
That's the one. Alright, I'll just click it myself.
Okay, yeah, my name's Dave. I'm going to try to do something a little bit different by doing an SK talk where I don't actually talk about the SK. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just going to go through a bit of a background as to how I got to a point where I considered doing an SK and why that was important to me in the first place. Then a bit about the preparation for it, and then some reflections on the day itself, and yeah. So inspiration. I got a lot of inspiration from the people that I come from, and the lives that they've led, the challenges that they've been through, the adventures that they've had, and that's always been very important to me. And that was something that cropped up again and again on the day. So this is my granddad actually in Egypt, and my father still is a very good swimmer, but he did a lot of long distance open water swimming back in the day, of around about 17 miles was I think most of the races they did thereabouts. That's in the Lake District in England, but also some in the sea. Back in the days when wetsuits didn't exist and only goose fat existed. This is my brother who kind of led me into the outdoors. I followed everything every example he set when I was growing up, and they stay with me today. Very practical, very strong, and so that's him making some steps in an uninhabited part of British Columbia. And that kind of got me into the great outdoors and a love of the outdoors, a love of wilderness, and then that led to mountains. And my kind of love affair with mountains I can attribute to two main points in my life. Back when I was 17, and I got to a point where I could look across to the summit of Mont Blanc, the highest peak in Europe, and I stared at it for about 10 minutes solid on my own, quietly. And that just stuck with me. It's stuck with me ever since, and it really struck a chord. And because of that, I then signed up to an expedition to the Andes a couple of years later, and that was following the path of the major habitations of the Inca. And at a point there, a friend and I tried to summit Cotopaxi, which is the highest active volcano in the world. And we ended up turning around just a couple of hundred meters below the summit at 6,000 meters. And that taught me two things. One, that there was an entire world above in the sky, above the rest of us, that I knew nothing about, and it was the single greatest moment of my life up until that point. And the other important rule was that I'm very much mortal, and that as important as it is to pick a good adventure, it's also important to know when to turn around. So that was a really key moment for me. So I moved to New Zealand just over 2.5 years ago, partly because of those interests, and so pretty quickly set about trying to get to know the backcountry. And my first job was cutting tracks, cutting and then marking tracks. So we'd spend 10 hours a day, 10 days straight, have 4 days off and back to it. A few of us living in a hut or a bivvy, cutting tracks all over the bio tracks all over Kapiti Island was my first job, and then moved, and that was a great kind of baptism of fire for the fact that no point of New Zealand apart from the coast is flat, and most of it's really damn steep and really slippery, and so my muscles were wrenched, and to get up at 5:30 every morning and have to do it again was a learning curve. And after that, we then did a job marking new tracks in Abel Tasman for a project down there, and so that was solo, so that would be 10 hours a day on your own, bush bashing in the same kind of environment. And that was hard but wonderful. That's about 3 hours bush bashing up from the main sort of the nearest track, I guess. And it's there were some special moments from that, and that stuck with me. The confidence that that gave me stuck with me, and that's probably the biggest factor, I would say, in why I enjoyed the SK, because I love the backcountry and I'm confident there. It doesn't say it means I can't make a mistake, but confidence is key. And coming from the UK, it's very much like Wellington, but with more drizzle and less sun. So that's on a good day, probably one of the 10 days a year, and then that's on an average day. That's Crib Goch in Wales. But yeah, so that leads on to why would I be interested in the SK? Because it's not just being out in the backcountry, it's quite specific. For as long as I can really remember, I've had a real big thing about wilderness. I couldn't really say where it comes from. I could hypothesize, but and the longer I've gone on, the more I've sort of studied biology and ecology, and that's kind of my working background. The more I have a pretty firm belief that our makeup as a wild animal is not even below the skin; it's on the surface, and to connect with that is a really powerful experience, and it's a drug for me. I get more and more inspiration from it the more and more I indulge in it. And when I came to New Zealand and moved to just next to the Tararuas, that was then the playground. And I'm also really interested in history, and the Tararuas has a really interesting history. And I'm only just scratching the surface at the moment, but the early kind of evidence of early crossings by Māori, and their kind of view of the mountains, and then subsequent exploration by Europeans, named just a couple there that I was interested in. That really struck with me, and then this idea of the Mairo, which was, as I understand it, kind of the sort of mythical kind of fairy folk that lived in the forests deep into the mountains. But more than that, it seemed to me to be like an inspiration that came from people who had fled into the mountains as a way of seeking refuge, and that the idea of seeking refuge in a place like the mountains and therefore becoming wilder as a result struck something in me about why I enjoy those places. So that's why I mentioned that there. And all in all, it seemed like a test that I thought would be appropriate. There's lots of tests in life, school and interviews and all those kind of things, and they mean something, but this meant something else. This was a test that I thought I really appreciated. And when we were driving up to Putara for the SK, and my partner Malena asked me in a roundabout way, you know, why it would be important to do this, and I said that if I could do this, then I'd earn my right to be in that place. And I could explain that for a long time, but that was the idea. And from there I could get good guidance, good inspiration from all the people who'd gone before, right back as far as 1931. So preparation, be hard to talk about preparation without mentioning Kapiti Island. After doing the track cutting, I then worked there as a ranger for some time, and still do it from time to time, and that was about finding the time to do what you need to do. So after a day's work, I would run to the summit, which is the only track on the island that you could run, and so I'd run to the summit and back, and that was a really good training ground for leaving your back door and going up a steep hill for half an hour, and then more importantly descending at speed, because that scared the hell out of me the first time I did it. So that's really important to me. It's still my favourite run because of the atmosphere of the place. And from there I got confidence to sign up to some races, did much better than I was expecting, and then that kind of pushed me into a position where I thought something like an SK was possible, and that I should give it a go. 14 months of recce's, some of which, well, they were all for fun, but some of which were specifically designed because of where the route was on the SK, or they provided challenging conditions. Some of them like solo and places that had a bit of reputation, so that caused anxiety, all those kind of things to try and replicate the kind of things I thought I might go through on a solo SK. So the way I viewed the day itself, what I expected from the day, I had this idea, I don't know where it came from, but that the main range of the SK was like a sleeping dragon, and I would try and tiptoe my way across it as fast as I could and as light as I could, try and leave no impression that I'd been there, and hopefully I wouldn't wake the beast. So this, if I can get it to work. this is what I was hoping for. But for any of those that have read my account of this day, you'll know that's not quite what happened. I'll leave that for the report's there. If you're interested, you can read about it. I won't go back over that again. But my reflections from that day and some things I took out of it were obviously the weather. The weather was marginal for a long time, got slightly good, and then became terrible. But the way that I approached it and what was important to me was that I would do what I could to pick a good day, and then I would try and be as prepared as I could for whatever the mountains would throw at me, and to get myself in and out. I had safety contingencies, but the idea was not for other people to have to come and get me. So the weather actually became the key factor as to why this SK day meant so much to me, because the mountains did exactly what I asked of them, and they made it into a typical Tararua day. They didn't make it easy, and I felt that I met them on their own terms, which was a big deal for me. And throughout all of that, I kept having this inspiration, memories of being a child, things I'd been told, all coming from my family, and that kind of taught me some things that I'd forgotten, you know, from ways I'd thought about being an adult when I was a child, what I wanted to be, what kind of an adult I wanted to be, and it was a very emotional experience, a very positive experience, and that was something that I wasn't expecting. And finally, the support. There were some guys behind me who were doing a supported challenge, and so there were people I passed all along the way, a lot of whom are here tonight, that had gone a long, long way into those hills to support people, and to see so many friends passing through the hills in terrible weather, many, many hours into the hills. I found that really inspiring. To see how a group of people can band together to help a friend achieve a goal was quite remarkable. And at the end of the day, the SK was only 24 hours. All that prep and all that fun and all those adventures lasted a hell of a lot longer than that. And it was all really just a good excuse for a lot of fun. So I'll just leave you with that impression. Thanks a lot.
Great presentation there, Dave. Smashing out of the ballpark with that one. Try and match that. Hey, I think you might have. That was awesome. I'm all inspired now. Right, so no, it's really good. Yeah, so he talks about the account. You guys probably know about the Tararua Speed Records website that I was talking about. So if you Google Tararua, anything Tararua Speed Records, it's all there, and everyone's reports are on it. So you can read all about it. We've set it up now, so that's great. So yeah, we'll keep moving along. We haven't got too much more. So so we've got Jean and Paul. Who wants to go next? Okay, Jean is everyone probably knows of Jean. She's known internationally. She's done Leadville, the big races, UTMB, and of course she's the multiple Northburn winner. I mean, she's coming up there with the top guys. It's just unbelievable. And I was up there the day when people were doing their SK, and Jean, I couldn't work out how come she looks like she's actually enjoying it and having fun. I said, isn't this meant to be hard? She's having fun. It blows me away. Anyway, so Jean Beaumont.
What I do I'm just looking for one. I'm very organised. Oh, there it is. One thing over there. Sorry, I'm a bit jet lagged. I've done no preparation, but I'm told that when I open my mouth, a lot of stuff comes out. Most of it makes no sense. But so I wanted to do the escape for a long time. I knew Colin had done it, so he was my inspiration initially, and I always thought that I should do it one day. But it wasn't until I got with Chris Martin's group actually, and that Chris basically galvanised me, and I think most of the other people here actually get off our asses and do it. So kudos to you, Chris, because you got me doing it. That doesn't matter, you're the facilitator, so that's all right. I was pretty happy that I could run it. I wasn't really sure about 24 hours, but I was happy that I could just do it. I was worried about my navigational skills, which is what was basically held me back from doing it.
That's what happened to your legs?
Yep, that's navigation skills. So I borrowed a GPS because I felt I needed a GPS, and I tried to use it in eTrex and I couldn't make head or tail of it. Then I remember that I had View Ranger on my iPhone, and I found that excellent because I was actually able to use it because I'm not very technical. So I loaded the map onto my iPhone, and then I thought I'd recce the northern part. I'd done the Tarot Mountain Race a few times and the Tarot Peaks. I went up there one day and the weather was absolutely foul. Gale force winds, 20 metres viz. I couldn't see anything, and I used my, there's no way I could have navigated in that sort of weather, barely being able to stand up with a map and compass. I would just found it impossible. So I used this View Ranger and it was sweet. And I thought, oh yeah, I know exactly where I am every time before I turn back before East Peak, because I just could not get any further because the weather was so bad. So I crawled my way back, and so I was kind of more confident then that I could.
That's a snapshot of the day.
Recce the bit. Yep. So from then on, and I did one more recce with Paul where we made the fatal error of not going all the way to Dundas to check out that bit where you have to take a bearing, because we couldn't really be bothered actually, could we, Chris? And we're having Paul having a nice lunch there. So then it was just a matter of waiting to go, and I was chomping at the bit to do it. But I had to go away on a camping holiday with the family, which was lovely, but when there was really nice weather. And then when I came back January, it was just windy. And I only had a few days where I could do it really, where I had transport available. And so Dave was good there because I went with him. So we sort of decided that we would pick that windy Saturday, and I thought, it's windy, that's like a killer, for a good time. But anyway, we went. He started half an hour before me because we both wanted to do it solo, unsupported. Mainly unsupported because I didn't know enough people to ask to support me, and it's all organisation. And well, that's true. It's all too hard. Just go on your own and get it done, So that is one of my life's philosophies, to be honest. Actually, I've learned you can't wait for people to hold your hand. If you want to do something and you ask people and they go, nah, don't do it, that's too hard, don't listen to them. If you want to do something, just go and do it yourself if you have to, otherwise you won't get it done. So anyway, I went up and I could just hear, after I got to Hirapai Hut, I just hear the wind was just howling, and I thought, oh dear, this is this is not going to be good, but in time-wise, not going to be good. Because I actually find it quite exciting when the weather's really bad. I don't mind it. I think it adds more to a story. Anyway, I got my way quite happily actually to Dundas. I was pretty proud of myself. That was no worries. I took my bearing, got out my compass and took my, Chris Swallow said 185 bearing. I thought, yep. I had my GPS. I thought, oh, this is exciting. I'm navigating on my GPS all by myself in the weather. I can only see 20 metres and it's windy and rainy, and so I took off, And then I went below the line on my GPS, below the ridge line. But at Dundas, and bearing in mind I couldn't really see anything much. There's very little visibility. It was kind of wide and open, and I had in my mind that the ridge was a wide open kind of a ridge, which it wasn't. And so I kind of ran. I thought, oh yeah, I'm a couple of contours below the line, and I'll carry on. And I just got in a world of leatherwood, bluffs, and scrambling up. And eventually, I just thought, I'm going to have to climb up these rock faces, or I'm never going to get back onto the ridge again. So I started climbing up, and then I thought I'll just check the GPS that I'm on the right track, and it was gone out of my pocket, and I thought, oh dear. The word's stronger than that. I thought, oh well, it's going to have to go back down again. So I went back down, I only went back down 10 metres, and there it was like a miracle sticking out of a leather wood, and I just thought, oh man, that's amazing. Anyway, I got back up onto the ridge and just saw Marta and Paul, and I thought, oh, I've lost so much time. Anyway, I just took off because I wanted to be solo. I thought, I can't go near anybody. So I took off, and the rest was all actually fine. One little silly incident, I was rushing through Dracophyllum. Sorry, my stories are really stupid. They're not very, they're not very mature. But anyway, I had these soft flask bottles, which were excellent, might I say, ladies. Soft flask bottles are the way it is. They're really good. Anyway, there's cracks in the decking near the tank, so I popped them in there, and I filled them up with one with electrolytes, one with perpetuum, and I can get them out again. And I was in a real hurry. I went, oh God, come on. Going on with the not mucking around at huts. So yeah, I had to kind of suck half of the innards out of them and then pull them out of this decking. And I thought, oh, that was stupid, like a monkey, you know, with his hand in the cookie jar. Anyway. It was all pretty good, basically. I was happy as Larry pretty much the whole way. The weather was terrible, but yeah, it doesn't really worry me too much if you got good gear. This is what I took. It's an NGX Kathmandu coat. It's heavier than a running coat, but it's still quite lightweight. I had not a word of problem with this, and it kept me warm the whole time, so that was awesome. It's my Tararua coat, so it always pays not to take a light running coat, I would say, into the Tararuas. Yeah, so I was doing pretty well, actually, I thought. Paul caught me up, and he ran behind me for a while. I was a bit worried he might make me non-solo, but it was all good in the end, and yeah, it was great to see a couple of people at the huts and stuff. Powell gave me a beautiful coffee at Kyme, and it's just like the best coffee that I ever had. And then I ran down, just down Marchant Ridge, and it was see the full moon, and it took me ages longer than what I thought, but yeah, it was all good at the end. I was pretty stuffed. And just for your information, so what I took was food-wise, like Lou, when I'm training, I eat proper food. But I find if you want to run quick, if I'm running quick as I can, I usually have a gel an hour and perpetuum, which I've started. And it's sort of like a base nutrition. I found that really good. No lows at all. Basically, it's just even, pretty much. And now I just have sandwiches, fruitcake, banana, etc. And keep hydrated, and that's worked pretty well for me over the years. So, yeah, that's about it.
That's great.
Good.
I think Jean's quite understated. She's actually a bit of a legend around what she does, but she always does it with just a really great, relaxed demeanour. But she's under that relaxed demeanour, she's double, triple hard person, because I've seen it. It's really impressive, eh? But they're all great people, these mountain running people. And next, Paul Helm. I think everyone knows Paul Helm. Welcome, Paul Helm. He's been really great for us in the Wellington running scene. He's so supportive. He's got the world of experience. He's one of the ridge runners. He's so basically just been a real good cornerstone of the Wellington running community, and that's one of the great things about this community. We're all so supportive of each other, and you have to be in the mountains because it's very dangerous, as Don knows there on the front there. He fell a little bit, but quite a big bit. But no, they're great people. That's the thing I really love about the sport. Okay, so Paul Helm.
Can I just check if this thing is working? It is or not? Or should I just talk loudly? Oh, is it? Oh, that's what it's for. Because it doesn't seem to be. No, it's not. Okay, got you. Cheers, Andy. Because I was wondering. I wonder if it was one of those points where I was marshalling last year on the undulator, and I had to say to Chris, and a few of you did the undulator. I was marshalling at the wash pool, and I said to Chris, the radio didn't work. We took, you know, with the radio, well, we didn't say that. We said the radio didn't work at the wash pool hut. And Chris was a little bit sort of upset about this, that, you know, I'd gone to all this trouble to get the radio and it didn't work. And he kept going on about it and going on about it. Well, 3 months after the event, I admitted that the reason it probably didn't work was because it was still in the boot of the car back at the end. We didn't actually bother carrying it because we didn't know how to use it, so. Hey, you were all safe. Sort of. But I suppose that's part of it. Just, you know, it is one of the things that I would say is, you know, you don't go lightly into the Tower Roads. You know, there's some atrocious weather up there. You know, look at the weather conditions at the moment, the amount of water that's going through. I've been caught out at times, even when the SARS have tried to get in and then said, no, we're not going in, it's too dangerous, because the water levels have just gone ridiculous. So just be very, very careful. Okay. Yeah, there's never, I can't remember, I put these slides together a while ago, and there's a lot going on at work. I work at the Treasury. We've got a budget to announce. So I can't quite remember what I've put in here. There's never a right time to do an SK. Well, yeah, and it's all in your head. It is, and I think Chris talked about this earlier. It's about the mental side of it. Because one of the things that, well, Chris said those nice words, so thank you about me. The one thing I enjoy about running about the Tuesday night crowd is that the bulk of the people, apart from probably Ian and I and one or two others, is most of them are a good 20 years younger than me. If not, I'm looking at Glenn, another 10 years younger than that. So I'm the old guy. I'm the one that's turning 54, and I'm still doing it. And all I'd be saying is, you know, it is in the head, because I was fortunate with my background that when I first was asked to do a really long run, it was 105, 110 kilometres. I was in my mid-20s and I had 10 days notice I was doing it. And they started at noon to make sure you went through the night. And I'm going, holy shit. But I did it. It might have taken me 18 hours. And then over the next 5 years, I got it down and I came 5th and I did it in about 11 hours. But again, fortunately, that first time I did it, I ended up, you had to group up overnight with guys, because whoever was there, and I ended up doing it with this guy called Alan Heaton. Now, he had won this event 10 times. He was also #1 on the Bob Graham list. So he's been around since the 60s running. That's sort of, you know, he was doing it when I was born. So, you know, when we think about some of the things we're talking about now and what we're pushing ourselves to limit, people have been doing this for years and years and years. So, you know, that's what inspires me, but it's the mental side of it. So it's all in your head. This is what it's like all the time. These are the Tower Roads. This is coming down off Bridge Peak and all the way through, and that's the only time I've seen it like that. Because I go up there, and if I'm going up there, don't join me. You know, when we did, one of the things that probably wasn't obvious is earlier this year when I did the SK, Dave set off on the same day about, he did it at 3 o'clock in the morning. Gene set off at 3:30, Marta and I set off at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the forecast was for windy but good weather. So I put a singlet on and I put sunscreen on and I was ready with lightweight gear. Yeah, right. Sunscreen actually works as water repellent, which is useful because that's all we saw. Wind, rain, more rain, and I've never been across the tops in weather like that. But with good support with people like Chris, Pavel and other people, they get you through, they help you. So choose your mates wisely. So the other thing that was running around in my mind is this quote: pain is temporary, pride is permanent. I was sitting listening to everybody else earlier. I don't actually know why I did the SK. I knew it was there because I've trained with Colin going years back, and that always inspired me, but I don't know actually why I then decided I'm going to do it this weekend. And it seemed like a good idea, but I'm one of those people that just thinks it's a good idea, so I'll say yes, because I don't like saying no, and then I just do it. So you've got to be a bit pig-headed, you've got to be a bit, get it in your own mind and have it, you know, the pain is temporary. And like people have said, yeah, there's a certain pain threshold you hit when you get to about 5 hours, and you can then continue beyond that because the pain doesn't get any worse. It just sort of plateaus and you just, well, keep going or take painkillers. But get your head in the right space. Well, no, I do. I remember Chris years ago saying, so at what point in a run do you take the painkillers? And I said, an hour before I set off. Because I know I'm going to hit it. So I've now got these Panadol for osteoarthritis. They release a painkiller over 8 hours. And that's probably about right for me. And then you can take some more. And they don't bugger up your guts and all the rest of it. So watch your kidneys. But yeah, that's what I do. But get your head in the right space first, and failure is not to be considered. And one or two people said, like Dave, if it's foul weather, actually, embrace it. Just challenge it. It's challenging you, but don't go, oh, it's a bit wet, it's not very nice, I don't want to go. Embrace it. Just go for it. Other people have been out in worse. Just do it. And break it down into manageable parts. That was one of the things that Chris was saying. You don't think about, when you started at the start of it, it's 24 hours. You actually break it down and say, oh, I want to get to East Peak. I want to get to West Peak. I want to get to Dundas. Major point. I want to navigate off Dundas. I've never managed to navigate off Dundas correctly yet. I always get it wrong. But break it down into manageable parts, and don't, play with the mind, because, just play with it. It's just this bit, then that bit, and then that bit, and then you go, oh shit, have I done all that? Just break it down. So it's all in the mind. Focus on the next bit, then the next. Bad weather is to be expected. And that bad weather, just, welcome it. Because if it doesn't happen, then good. When I was fortunate as well. I did a Bob Graham back in 1990, and I'd go up into the English Lake District, and we would have forecasts of gale force winds on the tops of the Helvellyn, where it's completely open, no protection, whatever, and really, really high winds. And so we'd go and try and see what it was like to run on there, and go, yeah, okay, if it's going to be gale force winds, we can't do this because we got blown off. Then we got blown off a side route, and then we went into the valley bottom and went, oh, actually it's manageable. But it tells us that, train in the lousy weather, and hopefully it'll be good on the day. Doesn't always work, but just go with it. But the other thing, that negativity, it will play with your mind, and you've got to go through those cycles and just slug at it, just keep going at it, because it is all in the mind. There's not many. And this was a great day. I did I went in from Podes Road near Levin and ran down to Otaki Forks just for a weekend on my own. All weekend it had been foul, it had been clagged in and everything. When I got down towards Otaki Forks and looked back, that was the weather. So it really is not nice. It does this to you. It plays tricks with you. Just expect it to be lousy, and sometimes it can be nice, but it won't be when you're up there. Not when I'm up there. It's just what I see. Okay, and the other one is, the body will do what the mind tells it to. So play with the mind, work on the mind, the body will put up with it. If you can read books about people that can cut their arm off to actually survive and get out of a situation, then what we put our bodies through is nothing by comparison. I'm not saying you have to do that, I'm just saying that, just the mind will lead you through it. Just use the mind. Do take the right gear. Don't skimp on the gear. I remember catching up with Gene at one point, and I was all ready for giving up with the whole SK. I got to Munga Hooker and decided, right, this is it, I'm going to pack in here. And I caught up with Gene, and Gene said, you look about all in, do you want to just follow me a bit closer for a while? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, oh, shit. That was meant to be a no. Because she looked at my gear and said, you're carrying a really lightweight, waterproof. And it's like, yeah, it was forecast to be sunny. I believed the forecast. So do take the right gear. I'd set off with Marta. Marta at one point then said, this is not going to happen, so I'm going to pull back. So we had a PLB. She was carrying it. We had one of those spotter things that Chris said we should carry. She was carrying it. I'm really good at passing on gear to other people because it's lighter for me. I like sharing these things. But all I'm saying is carry the right gear for you and be self-sufficient. I was stupid. Really, really foolish. Because the weather was lousy. I knew there was gear for me at Kyme. Well, I hope there was. Otherwise, we're really in trouble. But it's carry the right gear. Do get to know the track, because you will get lost at some point. There is that danger. We've all done it in terms of coming off Dundas. It's not the best of places, and I really want to go back and learn that bit. Embrace the challenge, reward yourself, give yourself little, sort of, if I get to that point, I will do this for me. I will take an extra few minutes break. I will do this, that and the other. That's what you do. But I do say don't rely on others. I relied on a lot of people and they came through, they were really strong. But between the checkpoints, as I would put it, between those huts and what have you, where those people aren't and you're on your own, you have to rely on yourself. You have to be able to back yourself, know when to put your gear on, know what hypothermia looks like. I've been hit with hypothermia a couple of times, and so you've got to be able to recognise those things. You have to be able to rely on yourself as well. And it's not always like this, but so you have to be sensible. Don't underestimate the SK, do think ahead. I'm not fit, I'm just an average sort of person. I'm not the strongest runner, I'm a pretty slow runner, but I just don't know when to say stop. So I just keep going. I'm just pig-headed, and I think that's what you need to be a little bit. Do think about your supporters. If you're doing your SK, these supporters coming into point, they'll have taken 4 or 5 hours to get in, and they'll take 4 or 5 hours to get out, and in actual fact, some ways, the easiest way is to keep going down the ridge. It's a lot easier than trying to come off Junction Knob and go all the way through Waitai in the dark and all that sort of jazz, or coming in from Podes Road and meeting you. So do think about what you're asking your supporters to do. It's a hell of a commitment, and do go prepared. And that's what it can look like. That's the ladder there, and I'll be honest, that's what it looks like every time. I've been there 8 times now, and it always looks like that. That's probably one of the only times I've got a photo of it, because it looked quite good. The rest of the time it's been worse, really, really worse. So, the SKs are not to be underestimated, but it's bloody good. It's great fun. So go and do it. I can do it, and I'm 50, nearly 54, so if I can do it, all of you can do it. It's easy. I think that's it. That's it.
It's not easy. It's quite hard, I think, but yeah, what he's saying is that if you train your body up, you probably can give it a nudge. Right, so that's the end of the talks, but we do have the final bit of the evening. I'll invite Chris Swallow up here to make a little announcement. Where is he? Oh, there, mate.
Right, can you do my Who Dicky What's It? Right, 3 years ago I went over to the UK to the Bob Graham round, and Paul mentioned that, and I was on holiday, I was in good shape, and I gate crashed a mates, and I gate crashed this rich history of mountain running where people give back to the community, and I came away with an attainment, but I felt a little bit fraudulent, and it got me reflecting. And the same year I did an SK, and I felt a real privilege to be a part of the history of that route, and to follow in the footsteps of Colin, really. And I got thinking about, could we formalise some recognition for people that can knock this thing off in 24 hours? And one thing Jean said to me earlier was, said earlier that really resonated with me was, be honest, and if you sort of fancied doing something, just go ahead and do it. Well, I didn't for sort of 2 years. I just thought to myself, here I am, a POM in New Zealand, and I didn't want to sort of step on the toes of the tramping community and launch this thing that wasn't really mine to launch. And this idea was just germinating away. And now that 11 people have knocked it off, and it's gathering a bit of momentum, I guess that sort of motivated me to do something about it. And yeah, I wanted to kind of formalise and recognise people who were putting in the yards to complete this challenge. So what we've kind of done is, if you click, Chris, we had a bit of a chat and we came up with some objectives for this club, and yeah, there they are really. And there's another column up there. Now, I'm not going to read them, but yeah, click again, Chris. And I think I want to keep this brief because it's been a long evening, but I also want to make it moderately profound, if that's possible. That I think on the 24th of May, which is what we're on now, the season's kind of over for the SK. There's snow on the hills now. You would have thought that anybody that's going to knock off a 24-hour SK would have done it before the 24th of May. So I think tonight's going to be the night where we meet, and we're going to present a certificate in 2017 and 2018 and hopefully long into the future for people who can test themselves against those mountains and get down the range in under 24 hours. And the first person to do that who I want to really sort of recognise is Colin. I'd like you to invite you up here, Colin, because you've got a job to do. You thought you were over for the evening. Now, the only people that have seen these are my wife. Many times, as I said, what do you think about the colour on this and this, that and the other, and the librarian at my school, where is their only colour photocopier in the college, and I told her that she didn't see me doing what I did today. So what I actually wanted one of the early weekend 48-hour SK people to present you with yours, but they're not here, and I feel quite inadequate doing this, but you really inspired me. And as number one to do that, Colin, I'd like to present you with your certificate. And then that's you now. Yeah.
Yeah, so Colin. That's right. Colin, so yeah, seeing as you as the first one, we'd like you to hand out the other ones to the other people. So the next person on that list is a young man called Lawrence Pidcock. Come up and get your certificate.
Number two. So you
Number two.
Just ahead of whoever was with you.
And his partner in crime, Chris Swallow. Next one. Well, yeah, I've been in touch with Grant. Grant and Matt came up and did it from the South Island. They're South Islanders. They're well known in the mountain running community. They couldn't be here. We've got their address, so we're going to post it to them. But they send their regards. And Matt Bixley was tried for the Barclay Marathon. I don't know if you guys know about that. These guys are doing big stuff, and they're South Islanders. But we invited them up here for our little bit of mountains up there in Wellington. But yep. So they can't be here, but I hope you watch this, Grant and Matt, because it was great having you guys come down and do our taroos. So that's them.
Just worth mentioning that they chipped a bit of time off Chris and Lawrence's time.
Yeah.
It's worth a mention.
Yeah, they were.
Briefly,
they were. They were the fastest. They smashed it. You'll have to go on the website. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they really smashed the times. I think Grant beasted 21:49. They were real fast, and they didn't really know the route, but they're very experienced mountain men, and they've got and reinforced that you need that sort of experience. So the next one is Tim Sutton.
Well done, Tim. I'm sure you're going to have another. Sure, you're going to have another crack at it, because that was probably just a training run for you. So you can chop a bit more time out of that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Once the memory fades a bit.
Okay, nice one, Tim. And yet she doesn't know how strong she is. I think if she can really put her mind to it, she can do amazing things. Lou Beckingsale.
Well done, Lou.
Thank you.
Yeah, just
give it a kiss, Colin.
Yeah. if you're up for it, I was going to try and hook up with you for this beer running thing they've got going, because I've got good history for that, and you sound like you're the ideal woman.
You talk afterwards. Al Shelton, the man that can turn a fun factor at 8 at Anderson's to extreme pain by a climb. And the Booker Prize winner for his rendition, his report writing, and I think his presentation tonight, Dave Allen.
Well done, Dave. If you took off your meditation time, you probably would have cracked the record.
Well done, mate. And the legend that is Gene Beaumont.
Worth the mention that Gene was the first although she wasn't the first woman, she was the first over 50.
Over 50 woman, yeah. So
over 50 person. Over 50 person.
Over 50 person, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well done.
Great, Gene. Yeah, thanks, Colin. I think that's... oh, no, Paul, of course.
Still got a couple more?
Yeah, got a couple more. Yeah, I nearly forgot Paul. Of course, Paul Helm. Oh...
First over 50 man.
First over 50 man, yeah, the oldest.
And the oldest, yes.
Yeah. Right. Brilliant. So what a great night. Thanks, Colin, for doing that. Added a bit of class and tradition to the whole thing. So I'm glad you made it, mate. It really made it special that you made it up here. So yeah, so that's the end of the evening. So hope you guys all got something out of it, and maybe there's time for a quick beer before you go home. But yeah, thanks for everyone for coming. And it's raising funds for the Arangi range. If you can get in there, especially the Mangatoto end, they're doing amazing stuff with restoring bird life. It's amazing, and it's not the odd bird. It's like loads and loads of birds in whole valleys. So we're raising money for them. And come and do the Arangi undulator in November if you want to run up some hills and feel some pain. So, and the Muka Muka Munta, yeah, we're going to do that as well in August. So yeah, thanks everyone. Well done.
I might take Grant and Matt's and post them.
Yeah, I've got Grant's address.
Which is sort of
guys, well done.
Yeah.